What's up, gang? Wow, that is nice and brisk over on my side of the world. It is 12:05. Good afternoon and welcome into the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let's get the pleasantries out of the way and get into the show content. It is Wednesday. It is June 28th. It's 2023. We're here till about 3 o'clock this afternoon when we'll make way for Brian Wilson and The Drive. Our telephone numbers are 615-737-9986. That's our telephone line. And I love hearing from you, turning a monologue into a dialogue. Our super text line, 615-737-9986. Convenient how we make it the same telephone number. So whether you want to text us or you want to call us, I always enjoy that interactive element of talk radio. That's what we're here for. So we are here for a lot of other things as well, like Joe Biden and his I'm sorry. I'm getting a telephone call during the middle of my show from somebody that should know better, and I did not mute my phone. That's my bad.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
As we speak, can I, you don't have a television in there, do you? So we can't do that at all? So I can't join a press conference right now? Huh.
Well, why would you?
Why would I want to listen to the President of the United States tout his Bidenomics nonsense ahead of the 2024 election? It's convenient, though, because that's what we were planning to discuss at the beginning of the show anyway, and we'll get right into it. We will also, at some point over the course of the day, talk about the Nashville mayoral race, specifically the candidacy of one Jim Gingrich, someone that we've had in studio with us talking about his candidacy for mayor. He has a new advertisement out that I'm going to take a bit of exception with. Andy Ogles was on Nashville's Morning News earlier today with Dan Mandis, and he had something to say about his decision to file impeachment articles against the sitting president of the United States. We're going to go over that and what it means for the future of the country and where it's going. Hint, nowhere. In the meantime, Joe Biden is completely out of it, deciding that Vladimir Putin is attacking Russia. Or rather, Vladimir Putin is attacking, I can't even get it right. Vladimir Putin's attacking Iraq. Vladimir Putin is attacking Iraq. He's at war with Iraq. First I've heard of it, but you'll hear from the man himself. I've got the audio, and we'll share it with you during the lunchtime hour. In the meantime, hope your lunch is going well. It's our episode 368 of the Matt Murphy Show. You can join us on a variety of platforms, of course, 99.7 FM. There's all sorts of streaming platforms out there. They all generate from 997WTN.com. And then there is Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and to Twitch. Join us on the F&M Bank chat line if you dare to opine while watching Talk TV. Yes, the pickle. I told Dan Mandis earlier, for those wondering, that I'm serious. Dan Mandis, quote, let me quote Dan Mandis. Oh, you seriously want to do that? That's what he said. He challenged me. Right? So if you missed it, Mandis challenged me to pickleball. And I accepted the challenge. And then I talked to him earlier today. And I said, hey, Dan, let's get this on. Let's make it happen. Oh, you really want to do that? Well, you challenged me. What do you mean, really want to do that? Singles, doubles, anywhere you want. I'll do it. Happy to do it. So maybe we'll, at some point in the course of the day, talk about that as well. Your telephone calls, as I mentioned, all afternoon long. Let me start here. I understand fully why people were so morbidly curious, or at least early on curious, regarding the OceanGate Titan submersible and its travel to the Titanic and the fact that it was lost. This is not something that you hear about every day. And much like if someone was lost in space or we were unable to communicate with someone in space, this is such a one-off situation that naturally people's eyeballs are going to gravitate to said situation. And in the aftermath of it, it turns out that it's a tragedy. And in any tale of tragedy, you can see signs along the way of how that tragedy came together. There's a reason that it's a commonly used phrase that hindsight is 20/20. Of course, hindsight is 20/20. We know how everything turns out. And if you know how everything turns out, you can pinpoint those moments in time where fate turned against you and turned what could have been a dramatic situation into a tragic situation. Let's put it this way. For the vast majority of us in life, for 99.9% of us in life, you don't get up in the morning knowing that it's your last day on earth. We don't know how all of this is going to turn out. It's a mystery. But given the benefit of hindsight, you can see how all of this turns out, and then you can chart back and see how all of it came to be. So now, obviously, all of us know how the mistakes were made. All of us see the warning signs. All of us see where people warned this guy, the CEO, of what he was doing wrong and how the materials might not work properly on the seabed floor. And that's all well and good. But for the life of me, outside of clearing the debris away from the Titanic debris so as not to confuse people, or so as not to, I don't want to say it this way, but, right, they've decided to remove the debris, and they're spending a lot of money. This is not, throwing $150 at it and going down there and getting the debris. This is a tremendous amount of money that's being spent, and I'm told that somebody's going to pay somebody back, and it's going to come from somewhere or whatever, but you cannot tell me that there is not expense to the tax-paying citizens of the United States of America in bringing all of this back home. And so earlier today, I turned on my television just to make sure I'm caught up in the news after a couple of meetings, and there it is, all of this debris coming up, and every major news network is on this shot of the debris, and here it comes, and it's coming off the ship, and it's coming onto the dock. And I think to myself, this has become death porn. That's what this is. It's the reason that people slow down as they do when there are accidents. They want, oh, look at that. And I don't begrudge the natural morbid curiosity. It's a part of our existence that we don't talk about openly, but that's what I do. I'm here to call the baby ugly. But as I was sitting there watching some of this debris come up and thinking about the 5 passengers that were there and the implosion that occurred and what little they're going to be able to learn from any of this. They're not going to learn anything from this. And the fact that so many media networks are covering it indicates that there's a lot of people that want to see it, and the people want to see it because of this death porn fascination. That I truly believe that's what it is. And then a question popped into my head, and I don't know what to do with it except to talk to you about it. Now, I want to preface the question that popped into my head when I was thinking about death porn and the Titan submersible by saying that I stand by my assessment of the subject I'm about to bring up every step of the way. Everything that I've said about this subject, I stand by. I'm not going back on it. You regular, longtime listeners of the show know where I am on this subject. And I am where I am on this subject on general principle alone, regardless of what is contained within the subject matter. However, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking about the tragedy of these 5 people and the mistakes that were made, and I'm watching as every media network covers the removal of this debris from the ocean bed floor, and I'm wondering, why are we even removing this debris from the ocean bed floor? You're not going to learn anything from it. There's no bodies to recover. They don't exist anymore. And I asked myself this question. Is that not what we're doing with the Covenant Manifesto? It's an earnest question. It's a sincere question that I think every one of us need to really examine what you think you're going to learn from that manifesto. Now, remember what I just said. I understand how open government works, and I understand how open government becomes a government not for and by the people, but a government that serves itself first and foremost and treats us as subjects. And part of the way that they do that is closing off and becoming secretive to the people that are supposedly represented by said government. So on general principle, I believe that the Covenant Manifesto should be made public. with appropriate redactions. But understand, guys, I cannot help but wonder why there is such I think people have this belief that there's some magic thing that's written down in this manifesto. I understand some of you believe that, and I'm here to tell you that that's not the case from everything that I've seen and for all of the inside information that I've gotten. What you're going to get, much like, Ted Kaczynski, and you can name some of the individuals that have rambled in written form about their pet peeve, this thing or that thing. For Kaczynski, it was environmental impact and man's impact on the environment. I think most of this is death porn. Most of the interest in the Covenant School Manifesto is the same thing as to why we like true crime so much. I'm not blaming anyone for that. I understand the natural instincts. I understand the natural interest. But I hesitate to tell you that we're going to learn a single thing. That doesn't mean that I don't believe that it should be made public. I do. On general principle, the government should not be in the business of shielding information from the American people, especially for as flimsy of an excuse as feelings. But I think you and I and the rest of us are fooling ourselves if we were to suggest that for the most part, the interest in these writings is macabre. It's just a natural macabre curiosity. It's trying to make sense of the senseless. I can't tell you why, but I can tell you it happened, that as I'm watching this pull up, and I'm wondering how many people are watching this thing with this morbid curiosity regarding the bodies and how it happened. And I mean, we're all concerned with our own fragility in life, in this life, right? We're all worried about, or not worried, word's the wrong word. We're all considering what's next, and we're wondering, the fragile nature of life itself. I don't want to get too deep with it, but I think that goes into why people are so morbidly curious about things like the Titan, especially when we know what the outcome was. We know what the outcome was with the Covenant Manifesto. We know this person was off her rocker. We know that she was mentally insane. Yet outside of the principled stand that one takes regarding open records and government, it is a difficult question to ask, and I admit that I've asked it of myself, and I admit that I am among you when I say that for the most part, there is merely a morbid curiosity to read the writings of a crazy person. We're not going to learn anything from this manifesto, except that she's crazy. And we already know that. 615-737-9986 is our telephone number. I would love to hear from you on that. Am I wrong? Or I don't think I'm wrong. I might be wrong, but I doubt it. It's 12:18. We'll get this show underway under its own weight in just a moment. It's The Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Boy, there are two big aspects to gun ownership in the Second Amendment. One is obviously purchasing a gun, having a gun, and making sure that you have all the necessary equipment to go with it, ammo and whatnot. And the other is understanding how to shoot it, and that's a huge aspect of all of this. At Glock Store 270, their memberships, which are the best shooting deals in Nashville, are available to you right now. And basically, for the cost of a few range sessions, you can train every day for a year with an instructor. Now, you probably won't do it every day, but it's nice to know that you could do it every day. They have individual shooting rooms. They don't have shooting lanes. It's just you and your trainer. Highly experienced and certified firearm instructors. I experienced this, folks. I train at the Glock Store, and I want you to train at the Glock Store. You can put up to 4 individuals with one trainer in every individual room. You can shoot in multiple directions at multiple targets, not down a lane. That's important because that's how you live your life. You don't live your life in a lane. So I want you to go and I want you to get a membership right now. Go to shoot270.com to find out more information about the incredible memberships available at Glock Store, or go to glockstore.com and find out more about the Glock Store itself. It's world famous for a reason. The Glock Store, the only one that I will recommend, located just off Elm Hill Pike. Go by and say hello. Tell them Matt Murphy send you to the Glock Store. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is on the way, folks. I've been talking about it for a while. If you've not pulled the trigger and gotten your tickets, why not? What are you waiting for? The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix is August 4th through the 6th in downtown Nashville. They're running through the streets of downtown at up to 200 miles an hour. There's a lot of things going on outside of the racing, but it's all about the racing, right? Racing and music and racing and food and racing and fun and racing and more racing. New for 2023, the Saturday night racing, a family fun zone, and an early 11:30 start for Sunday. Fan favorite returns with the high-flying stadium super trucks. Get the tickets for the party of the year, either a 3-day set and premium hospitality or 1-day tickets available as well. Go to MusicCityGP.com for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Get amped for the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix at MusicCityGP.com. All right, for those of you in Aniana, let me repeat it because apparently some of you, despite my best efforts, are maybe only listening out of one side of your brain or whatnot. For example, 1096, you're wrong. Release the information. Pray tell, when did I argue not to release the information? As a matter of fact, I bent over backwards trying to explain that I still believe that the information must be released. It is a matter of open government that you release the information. I'm not arguing against releasing the manifesto. I am suggesting that the vast majority of people that are arguing that they want the manifesto released want it released simply so that they can read it. And I don't believe they're going to get a lot of what they think they're going to get. I think there's a lot of speculation in the void of information. I've said that from the beginning. In a void of information, that leads to speculation. And a lot of people are speculating and pretending like they know what's in the writings. Oh, this was all about whatever cover-up happened at the Covenant School that all of you want to tell me about. years ago. I don't know a lot about that because, well, I don't know a lot about that. But reportedly, there was some sort of sexual scandal some years ago at Covenant School, and it ultimately got covered up to a certain degree. And they say, you're wrong, release the information as per usual, and we will decide for ourselves. I've never argued against the release of the information. Secondarily, 1096 writes, have you even bothered to look into the fact that the young lady was there when the Covenant Church sex abuse scandal was going on? To that, I would say, sir, madam, I bother every day from noon until 3 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I bother every day. And obviously, I've looked into that as much as we can for a lack of information. As the late, great Uncle Phil would say, so many Van Gogh listeners, I have not advocated for the position being taken by the school. I am merely making a mental connection that happened to me earlier today with the obsession of this Titan material coming up from the seabed and the belief that these writings of an insane person are going to teach you anything. You cannot make sense of the senseless by definition. We try to. Why would someone go into the school at Uvalde and shoot up that school? That person was shooting kids. There's no making sense of that except to say that it's evil. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't want this information released, whether it's valuable or not. Obviously with appropriate redactions. John writes in and says, Matt, since I heard these 5 people passed away, I've not read or watched anything about it further. I pray for the families and hurt for their tragedy the same way I have for the Covenant School shooting victims' families. I'm just out of guess. No, John's a loyal listener. He's a longtime listener, and he's not a Van Gogh listener. And, John, you get where I'm coming from on this. I understand the natural morbid curiosity. What's funny to me, though, is people get mad when you call them out on it. And I don't look at it as a negative or a positive. It's human nature that one would do this. And if we can learn anything from it, so be it. But it needs to be released. Jason is first up in Hendersonville. Hey, Jason, thanks for calling. How are you?
Hey, thanks for taking the call. It's not only that we need to keep the Open Records Act intact and keep government accountable, but also they're using all these gun violent incidents against us to take away our Second Amendment rights. And it's to have it exposed is to get it out there, what we already assume or know, that she was obviously deranged to go try to attack children. But it'll be the proof out there to maybe help us battle back to say all legal, sane individuals carrying weapons today aren't the ones out here going out seeking to destroy innocent life. That we're the good guys.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
It needs to be exposed for those 2 reasons.
Yeah, and Jason, you inspire me, and I wonder if you agree with this. I've long argued that the left in this country's done a really good job at psychologically affecting especially our young people to believe that anytime somebody has a gun, it's a bad thing. I mean, you know what I mean? Like automatically, if somebody walks into a convenience store and they've got a gun on their hip, they're choosing to open carry, people freak out about it. And
the only way we get around that is to continue to do it so that they understand after 100 episodes of someone coming into their store that does zero harm to them, then it'll finally melt in through their heads. Hey, the vast majority of us are sane. The vast majority of us are only trying to protect ourselves against those who aren't sane. And when we need it, and we pray every day that we never have to use it, but we want it there on our sides just in case that 1% chance we walk into a store or we go somewhere and we're confronted with a situation that our hands won't be able to take care of.
Right. I mean, and I've long said I don't try to oversimplify the situation, but you'll get it, Jason. The listeners will get it. By definition, law-abiding citizens don't shoot people because they obey the law, unless they're being directly threatened or their property or their families are being. So by definition, law-abiding citizens obey the law, and by definition, criminals do not. So
Right.
And the guns have nothing to do with it. Nothing. So, I mean, the gun is just at that point a tool, like a hammer or a shovel. Thank you, Jason, for the call. You're dead on. I guess my point is this. Do I believe that there is something of significant benefit to us outside of this person being mentally disturbed? You know what? I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't. I remain neutral. Is it possible that there is something that we don't understand that was written about in these writings that for some reason individuals within the church or exterior to the church don't want us to know about? Maybe so. But I think a lot of this is just natural morbid interest. That does not mean that it should not be released. It should be released if it has benefit to us. It should be released if it doesn't have benefit to us. Mike is in South Pittsburgh. Mike, thank you for the call. How are you?
Enjoying your show there, buddy.
Well, thank you, man.
You just about took the words out of my mouth there. I would certainly like to know the motive behind the killing, because it's our right to know. But what really sparked my interest was why is the Christian ones affected by this tragedy trying to cover it up? I'm smelling a rat here.
Wait. You broke up a little bit that last sentence. You said that you smell a rat. Why?
Because of the Covenant Church trying to cover up or prevent the Manifesto from being published.
Yeah, it is the number of lawyers. I mean, I could give you the legitimate reason, but I don't know that I buy it, because this is pretty extreme. I mean, I understand why the Covenant School and by extension the Covenant Church would want to support the people that went through an incredibly traumatic experience that I can't possibly understand because I've never been through it. I've never been through an active shooter. So those of us who have not, we can't understand it, and we certainly can't understand the pain that the families are experiencing who lost loved ones that day. Now, that's legitimate. So if I were the Covenant School, or if I was someone to say, hey, I don't think we need to put the families through more of this pain and torment, that's one thing. But the families themselves make a lot of that decision-making as to whether or not they're going to expose themselves to any more of this. There's something more going on, I would agree with you, Mike. I don't know what that is, and I don't pretend to know, and I try not to speculate on it. But I agree that, the old Shakespearean saying, I think it was Macbeth, the lady doth protest too much.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's just something that's odd about the way that this is working out. I would agree with that.
Well, you keep up the good work, brother.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you. It's 1232 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. More coming back. Just talking about the tragedy of the Covenant School, and it reminds me to remind you, if you're a decision maker in a school, if you're a decision maker in a church, in a place of business, or anywhere where people gather, I encourage you to listen to me. Or I encourage you to tell a decision maker about Brink, Fiddler, and Defense Systems. Defense Systems is a life safety and security consultation firm based in Middle Tennessee. Their expertise lies in experience. They have nearly 2 decades of it. They understand active shooter response. They understand workplace violence and how to prevent it. They'll do a site survey on your individual site and tailor their get-together for that site. They'll talk about threat assessment, security improvement, emergency and intruder action plans, rapid response medical, and all customized to your facility. Plus, they will train your group, whatever amount of people that you have, as to what to do in the event that something goes horribly wrong. Hope is not a plan. The likelihood of anything like this happening to you is so slim, but hope is not a plan. It's time to get trained with Defend Systems. I've gone through the training, and I encourage you to do it as well. 236-6484 is the number, 615-236-6484, or defendsystems.com. That's defendsystems.com. It is 1237 Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy and you until 3 o'clock. Glad you're with us. Happy lunchtime. Hope everything's going well. Hope your plans for the 4th of July are in place. Hope you're not flying. Apparently, it's going to be an absolute disaster, not just at B&A, but across the United States of America. I have some.
Thanks, Pete Buttigieg.
You know what? I have Pete. You know what? I should try to pull this up real quick. I've got Pete explaining to us that his flight got delayed too, so he doesn't understand what we're complaining about. I mean, he didn't say it in that way specifically, but he basically said it that way. Here's Pete Buttigieg. Well, just 20 seconds of Pete basically explaining that he has cancellations too.
We got hit with some pretty tough weather. It's affected a lot of flights. I reached my hotel room at about 2:30 in the morning last night after my flight got canceled and the next one got delayed. A lot of Americans are going through the same thing. What I will say is that overall, we've seen the system perform much better than it did a year ago. And I think that reflects the work we've done. I think it reflects the airline stepping up. I want to give them credit where credit is due. But clearly, there's a long way to go.
We're doing better. This reminds me of an old slogan. I worked at Waffle House. I worked my way through college at Waffle House. Scatter, smother, cover, chunk, top, dice. And right next door to us in Carrollton, Georgia, where I worked, third shift at the Waffle House while I went to school at the University of West Georgia, was a Huddle House. And we used to pick on the Huddle House because of their slogan. Do you know what the Huddle House, I don't know if it's still their slogan, but you know what the Huddle House, what their slogan was?
We're not Waffle House.
Well, pretty close. Huddle House. Best food yet. I swear to you, it was on the side of their building. Like, this food still sucks, but it's the best food yet. We know it's not good, but it's, we've been putting out some pretty nasty things. This is the best yet.
This is terrible, but you're not going to find anything better.
That's what Pete Buttigieg is saying. It couldn't have gotten worse than last year, Pete. You dummy. It would, unless you ground all of the flights during a holiday, it would be almost impossible to get worse than it was last year during the holidays. Yet here he is saying, hey, I know that it's my basic responsibility to make sure the trains run on time. It's my basic responsibility to make sure the planes run on time. It's my basic responsibility to hold the airline industry accountable based on their critical role in America's infrastructure and our economy. But, hey, don't blame me. I didn't get in until 2:30.
We got hit with some pretty tough weather. It's affected a lot of flights. I reached my hotel room about 2:30 in the morning last night after my flight got canceled and the next one got delayed. A lot of Americans are going through the same thing.
Yeah, so quit your complaining. Quit your moaning and your being. I try to keep it clean during the lunchtime, especially during summertime because the kids are out of school.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Hey, what? Easy, Mr. President. I didn't say it. Joe Biden said that. I didn't say that. Joe Biden called him an SOB. I didn't do that. All right, back to your calls. Amber is in Cookeville. Amber, thank you for calling. How are you?
I'm good. Okay, so my clarification is this. I listen constantly, and I get a lot of good information from you guys. They were talking about a special session, I thought, with the governor right after this happened at Covenant. And I got the impression that the special session had to do with what had happened. And is that correct? Or my question is do we make laws on one incident? I mean, do they need this manifesto before they actually change some laws or made some laws, or am I misunderstanding all that?
No, this is a great question, and it deserves clarification. So here's the timeline as I understand it, and then I'll circle back and tell you what I think they were trying to do, Amber. So already in the pipeline, there were a number of bills relating to school safety and the funding of school resource officers in our public education arenas. That was already in the pipeline at the time that Covenant happened. They eventually secured that funding, so now any local school or municipality that needs an SRO in an elementary school or a middle school or a high school can get one through state funding and through no funding of their own. So that was already going on, and that's happening right now. But in the aftermath, it is natural that politicians, in the aftermath of a tragedy such as this one, will look and try to closely examine whether or not there's anything that they can do to demonstrate to the public that they're doing something. And if there's a legitimate problem that merits addressing. So they did that immediately after Covenant School, and the governor signed an executive order and that executive order had to do with turnaround on reporting on gun forms, any sort of mental impairment. It was a technical deal where the turnaround could be weeks, and they wanted to shrink that down into days. And then the governor said that he had an intention to call a special session, and a lot of people thought that it would be immediately after the regular session, and it turns out he's going to wait until August. Your instinct, I think, is correct, that this is a group of people searching for a problem so that they can solve it and not willing to accept the reality that in a free and open society that we cannot guarantee that we're going to be 100% of the time correct in regard to stopping some of these types of things. So I do think that the special session is very much in response to Covenant, obviously, but it is searching for a solution, and I don't know that anyone knows what that solution is outside of the governor saying that he would be willing to consider a, quote, order of protection, which many have rightly labeled as a red flag law. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you so much. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. I appreciate you. I mean, I don't want to overthink it, and I don't want to over-answer it. But, yeah, that's exactly what's going on. The fact of the matter is that in a society that believes in openness, in a society that believes in your ability to live a life of your choosing, to have the individual freedom to do so, but also take the individual responsibility to do so, that society has gaps in which can walk criminals, through which can walk those that want to do us harm. We try to close those gaps as much as we possibly can, but they will never be permanently sealed, not in a free and open society. I mean, you could seal them. Look, at Amber, I believe in the United States of America, we could make sure that no one else gets shot. I believe that. I don't think that's a country we want to live in, though. I don't think that country would look like anything that resembles the United States. So it's kind of a, if that's all you value, what was the old Benjamin Franklin quote? Those that value security over liberty get neither. Well, it's true. So there's a natural emotional response to try to, quote, do something. But I don't know what that something would be. I don't know that we've not shored up our mental unless you're talking about building mental institutions and utilizing those mental institutions to mass incarcerate individuals that we deem are a danger to themselves or to others. My point's always been this. If someone is such a danger that we are going to suspend their gun ownership rights, then we should be willing to suspend all of their rights. If someone is such a danger to themselves and to others that we're willing to suspend their Second Amendment rights, they should lose all of them. Otherwise, we need to ask why we're taking away some and not the others. What, they can't use a car or a knife or some other form of death and destruction? Mike's in the borough, and Mike joins us next. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Matt. So I agree with you on a lot of stuff. The majority of everything you're saying, and people are going to do bad, and basically the only thing you can do is ask why. About the whole morbid thing, I've been on first responder and fire crews long enough. I'm not really concerned about that. But as a gay guy who goes to church and is a gun carrier, I'd really like to know what her readings, her manifesto thing, says. Because, I mean, obviously it's a hate crime of some sort. She targeted a church. Is she anti-Christian? Is it because of, her being trans or queer or whatever she was? For me, there's a whole different perspective that I'm looking at on, why I would like to see the manifesto and see what it, how it reads. The whole, death, porn, I could care less about that. I've seen enough about that. You are right, though. People slow down for traffic accidents, and there is a mentality that, they just want, they want to know natural curiosity.
I mean, I think we naturally fear our own death. Even those of us of a religious faith, we naturally, it frightens us, the unknown, and because of that, I think it leads to a natural morbid curiosity about the other side. To your point, I don't disagree with anything you've said. I think you can learn certain things about where this person was and how they looked at the world and how they decided to manifest their evil. I think it's likely, and I fear entering a room of speculation, but I'll do it tepidly and then get out. I think it's likely that her transgenderism came as a result of her mental illness, meaning that she felt like this was an avenue by which she could get some mental peace. That's just me speculating. I don't know if that's true or not, and I say that for this reason, Mike. We do know through my sources that she did preliminary details like 10 years ago to target a high school. And she then moved on to the Opry Mills Mall. We have multiple sources stating that one of her original targets in this current plan was the Opry Mills Mall, but then she decided that the Opry Mills Mall was too fortified. There were too many officers with guns that would stop her from doing her evil deed. And that's when she turned to the Covenant
Somehow
School.
came back to the church, yeah.
I don't necessarily know that it was specifically. I know a lot of people want to believe that it was targeting of Christians because that kind of fits a narrative for them. I don't necessarily know.
Yeah.
I don't know that we know that yet. Could be, could not be. Who knows?
And one of the things you learn from the manifesto, maybe you learn nothing from it. You know, you may read it, be like, okay, well, it tells us nothing, but you still, we both agree that you still have a right to see it and, you know, determine for yourself whether or not you learn anything from it. I don't think it should be hidden from either of us. But yeah, I just come from a different perspective, being who I am, and I'd be very curious to see, you know, the outcome of it and see what it says.
Well, while you're here, Mike, because I did this show, I guess, yesterday. I asked a question yesterday, and I did not get a lot of response. But I'm curious from your perspective. The circle of friends that I have, there are gay people within that circle of friends. And I tried to ask those individuals, I lean on them on occasion, trying to get the sense of where they are on some of the issues that come up day to day. And my circle of friends who happen to be gay, they look at this discussion that's going on right now within transgender communities regarding, you know, drag shows and middle schools and all of that. And they're like, they want no part of it. They just don't. They don't want any part of the discussion, and they don't want to necessarily be associated with these sorts of debates. Where do you fall on all of that?
I think it's okay to put regulations in place that protect kids and the exposure they have to adult content.
Okay. Whatever that content may be.
Whatever that content may be. We don't let them drink. We don't let them drive cars. We don't let them vote. We wait until they're a mature age to introduce them to these things. And I don't see why they need to go to a drag show that's sex-filled, very sex-oriented. And, there's no need. Now, a lot of gay people are like, oh, you're targeting gay people, you're targeting trans, you're targeting drag show. You know, no, you're limiting on where that can be done, just like you're limiting, you don't want prostitutes standing on the street corner in downtown. You just have to limit that and protect the kids. And I think we both agree on the same thing. If you put a regulation in place so that teenagers and young preteens are not exposed to these drag shows, that's not a bad thing. And I'm totally for the rule. I'm totally for it. Completely 100% for it.
Right there with you. I think it is being demagogued by political partisans for their own purposes, but I'm right there with you. It makes common sense. Thank you, Mike, for the call, and do please call again. It's 1252 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I don't know if you've heard hot outside. Well, it's summertime. It ought to be hot outside. I mean, you know where we live. You also know when that AC is not running as it should, don't you? I mean, it's sluggish. It's difficult to keep up with the heat. Now, it's going to be difficult to keep up with the heat this time of year, but here's the scary thing, is this is the time of year when the AC just goes, it just gives up, right? And Jeff Eddy's right there. If your AC is gone, then call Jeff Eddy of Efficient Heating and Cooling and allow him to come out and correct the, because it has a life cycle, right? 15 years or so, and eventually it's going to go bye-bye. And Jeff Eddy's going to tell you the truth when it comes to whether you can get some more life or whether it's, do it with me now. Well, if your AC is, call Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. Call him at 615-784-4424 or go to efficienthvac.net, efficienthvac.net. When you call 615-784-4424, just tell him, I was listening to Matt Murphy, and he told me to call you and tell you my AC was just because I want to see the response that Jeff gives me. It's Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. All right, real quick, two things. One, someone says that I'm in trouble for bringing up Waffle House because it's lunchtime and they're hungry. My bad. I would encourage a triple scrambled with cheese, plate, scatter, smother, cover, chunk, top, dice. Secondarily, it was Hamlet, not Macbeth, under the lady doth protest too much. My bad. Back for 2 more hours on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. The former Marine charged in the chokehold death of a fellow passenger on a New York City subway pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and negligent homicide charges today. ABC's Aaron Katursky is outside court.
In court documents, the Penny's made some statements to police indicating that he felt Jordan Neely was a threat. Came onto the train, the F train in Manhattan, and started throwing things. Penny is quoted telling police officers that's when Penny decided to act, he says, on behalf of fellow passengers, put him in a chokehold that ultimately led to his death.
Neely's family say he didn't deserve to die and suffered from mental illness. A scare for passengers on board a Delta flight today after leaving Atlanta. That plane forced to make an emergency landing at Charlotte Douglas International after the front landing gear failed to extend. It landed on its belly. Dispatch audio with fire crews captured on Broadcastify. All 96 passengers and crew members on board evacuated safely. The Supreme Court winding down its term this week with decisions expected on several major cases.
The Supreme Court has 7 cases left, including one on affirmative action, looking at whether colleges and universities can keep using race as a factor in admissions. Another big case will decide the fate of President Biden's student loan relief program, and many eyes on a case about whether businesses can choose not to serve LGBTQ customers citing religious reasons. Chief Justice John Roberts says the next round of decisions will come Thursday morning, but he didn't say that will be the court's last day, so it's still possible rulings could come Friday as well. Lindsay Watts, ABC News, Washington.
Salvage debris from the Titan sub arrived at St. John's Port today. Crews offloaded recovered pieces of that catastrophic implosion that killed all 5 on board. You're listening to ABC News.
Many of us next week will take a day or several days off to celebrate our nation's independence. Independence Day. Obviously, it's well known as the 4th of July, but I like to call it Independence Day because it reminds us what we're celebrating. The Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project wants to remind you that there are groups of people that make our independence a reality. Well, obviously, God Almighty is there to protect us, but the United States military is right there to protect us as well. And those men and women that work so hard to protect us, they come home after their tours of duty. And to reintegrate into society is sometimes a difficult thing. That's where the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project comes in. Their mission is to help veterans and heroes like some that you might know reintegrate from service to civilian life. And I encourage you to make a donation today. Sometimes I don't know if an organization that says that it is for veterans' interests, whether or not they're on the up and up, and the Charlie Daniels Project, they do. They know. They vetted these programs, and they give to the best of the best. Will you give today? I'm honored to have David Corlew with me next Monday as we celebrate Independence Day and talk about this worthwhile project. I'm also honored to be able to talk to you about the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project. Give today at the Charlie Daniels Journey Home Project.org. Here we go. Hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show is underway. Thank you for being out there. We appreciate you wherever you might be, in your homes, automobiles, places of business, or parts unknown. Thanks for giving us your time today. It's our episode 368 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You can also join us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We are on Talk TV. I failed to, I was having some headphone distress, and I failed at the beginning of the show to introduce the man with the plan, the guy that does the job and turns the knobs. He's Bell K. We refer to him as Headless Bell because he's behind the glass and refused to go on Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Hello.
Hey.
So do I have a commitment from you that if this pickleball deal goes down and it's Mandis versus Murphy mano a mano, that you're going to be there to watch?
I'm sorry, you got me hung up on the mano a mano thing. I don't see where that, I mean, that's half wrong.
Mano a nerdo.
Okay. Sure.
Will someone get that back to Dan, please?
Yes.
That Matt Murphy has stated that their match is going to be not mano a mano, but mano a nerdo.
Yeah. Somebody let him know.
Please. I wish I could relate a story that I'm not going to, though.
About you and Dan?
About Dan and I. As he called me, and he said, I heard you got a I heard you got a ringer. I heard you got a ringer.
We can't.
No, I'm not going to go there. No. It was funny, though. But, yes, I did try to get a ringer involved. We can do doubles. We can do singles. If you don't know, Dan Mandis, I will say this part of the conversation. I called Dan earlier today, talk about some, just general stuff. And I said, hey, by the way, let's go. Let's do this pickleball thing. Now, and he goes, oh, you're really serious about that? We're going to do it? You
see, what kills me is you call him and you talk about pickleball. I call him and it's, what do you want?
Well, I mean, he does that too. Don't get me wrong. Dan is a very interesting cat on the phone.
I have to say, I think that you should just scratch the idea of doubles. This needs to be
I agree.
You and Dan against each other. That way, at the end of the match, no matter who wins, all that can be said is it was you versus him and not, well, he screwed up and my partner did this and you wouldn't have won if it wasn't,
I got accused of trying to drag in. I've become good friends with Ron Slay on the afternoon show over at our sports brother station, 104.5 The Zone. And I love Slay to death. And Slay is obviously an incredible athlete. He played for the University of Tennessee in college. I think he was SEC Player of the Year. Went on to have a great, illustrious career in Europe playing basketball.
That's SEC Player of the Year. That's all sports. That's everything.
I think so, yeah. So I was accused of trying to drag in a ringer when I asked Slay if he wanted to be my doubles partner. So I agree with you. Mano a nerdo. Murphy versus Mandis. The Super Talk 99.7 WTN Pickleball Challenge. And I'll do all the heavy lifting. But, yes, I called Dan, and he was like, oh, you're serious about that? I was like, what do you mean I'm serious about that? You challenged me. Much like I challenged him to Connect Four, and I've admitted, I had no idea that Dan Mandis was some sort of Connect Four whisperer. I've never seen a man more in tune with his checkers then Dan Mandis was in tune with that board.
He gets home, and it's Jasmine versus Riker, and he just wails on Riker.
Wails on him, just whipping up on him. And as far as the pitches at the Sounds game go, I'll just one word, or two, actually. Lucky pitch.
Oh, and for those that don't know, Riker is his wife's son, and he calls Dan Jasmine.
Is that still going on?
Yes. I think that will be his name for the remainder of his life.
I'm not about to be beaten in pickleball by a dude who was nicknamed Jasmine. That's just not.
It would be pretty shameful.
There's no part of my world that exists that I can be beaten as lazy and out of shape as I am. And trust me, I'm lazy and out of shape. There's no way that's happening. Anyway, we'll keep you up to date. Maybe we can have a charitable component to all of that. I just want to bring up. Dan's like, you're serious about that? Well, you brought it up. Let's bring this up. It is difficult to understand all of the subtle nuance going on with the Hunter Biden, Joe Biden scandal. Here's the first thing you need to know. This is not about Hunter Biden. It is about Joe Biden. It is about what Joe knew and when he knew it and how he was using his position as vice president of the United States to influence, peddle, and to bribe various countries to pay him money. Hunter Biden was his workhorse. Hunter Biden was his bag man. This isn't about Hunter as a central figure. Hunter Biden is not the head of the snake. Joe Biden is, and Jim Biden is. Hunter Biden was a minion that made money off of it. It was a way for Joe to use his son for his own purposes so as he could bank some cash, and it kept his son out of the crack houses, or at least Joe hoped that it did. There is now a second IRS whistleblower by the name of Gary Shapley, or Shapley. I don't think I've heard his name pronounced. This is reaching mainstream media, and that's good news because once it reaches mainstream media, it will reach a more robust portion of the American population. And when they begin to understand the nature of what Joe Biden is doing and was doing, and how he's lying about it. First clip's about 2 minutes long. This is an interview from CBS News with the whistleblower regarding what happened and why it happened and what they were told to do with it.
If this was any other person, they likely would have already served their sentence.
Gary Shapley was a lead IRS supervisory agent in Operation Sportsman, the investigation into Hunter Biden. Shapley said he uncovered conduct that warranted more serious charges.
There were personal expenses that were taken as business expenses. Prostitutes, sex club memberships, hotel rooms for purported drug dealers.
How much did Hunter Biden owe in taxes?
So from 2014 to 2019, it was $2.2 million.
The back taxes
in
were
taxes.
Paid off. And last week, the Trump-appointed U.S. Attorney in Delaware, David Weiss, reached an agreement with Hunter Biden. The president's son would admit to a firearm charge and plead guilty for his failure to pay taxes. If a judge signs off, the deal means no jail time.
Testimony we have just released details a lack of U.S. attorney independence.
And Shapley told lawmakers that U.S. Attorney Weiss was blocked from bringing stronger charges. But U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said last week that Weiss was not.
I'd say he was given complete authority to make all decisions on his own.
I documented exactly what happened, and it doesn't seem to match what the Attorney General or the U.S. Attorney are saying today.
Shapley provided lawmakers this contemporaneous email he wrote after an October meeting last year. Shapley says Weiss told him the opposite, that Weiss is not the deciding person on whether charges are filed.
It was just shocking to me.
Shapley, who is still working for the IRS, told us that even before President Biden took office, he was directed to avoid leads involving Hunter's father.
There were certain investigative steps that we weren't allowed to take that could have led us to President Biden.
And you wanted to take them?
We needed to take them.
And you weren't allowed to take them?
That's correct.
That is it in a nutshell. Kudos and hat tip to CBS News for covering this story. Because that launches you into how this is not about Hunter Biden. It is most certainly about Joe Biden. And how Joe Biden was entangled. if Hunter Biden owed $2.2 million in taxes, how much money did he make? Where did that money come from? How much entanglement did Joe Biden have in all of those business dealings? And this concept that David Weiss had authority to charge, now David Weiss has been gotten to, and David Weiss is kind of telling two stories, but I believe David Weiss while he was investigating it. I believe David Weiss, as he told Gary Shapley, no, I don't have the authority to make the decision on this. And who believes that? Who believes that Joe Biden would give away ultimately his opportunity to decide what Hunter was charged with and wasn't charged with, and they would hand it off to a Trump guy in Delaware? It is laughable on its face. But there you have it. These people are phonies, and they're crooks, and they're about to be caught. At least if the judicial system is not completely destroyed with corruption already. And Joe Biden's now being asked about this. Joe Biden, before his big speech today, which we'll get into a little further, I think he was in Chicago, asked a question outside of the White House regarding this matter.
President Biden, how involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved?
No, I wasn't, and I don't know.
Were you?
No.
How involved were you in your son's Chinese shakedown text message? Were you sitting there? Were you involved? No, I wasn't. Were you? No. In that same stand-up gaggle, Joe Biden also had this to say.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. And it's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
All right, so do you hear what he said there? I'll play the beginning again.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq.
He's talking about Vladimir Putin. He said, he's clearly losing the war in Iraq and he's losing the war at home. Now, one would think that this was a simple slip of the tongue, but reportedly he said the same thing last night at a fundraising dinner as well, that Vladimir Putin was losing the war in Iraq. Here's what I know. Joe Biden is losing his mind. If you're not clear on what the text messages were in that Chinese shakedown text, Hunter Biden shook down a Chinese official years ago via text message. These text messages have now come out. And Hunter Biden says, I have my dad sitting here, and we want to know where our money is. I'm paraphrasing. We want to know where the money is, and we want this matter resolved, and we want it resolved tonight.
You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
And the text messages don't lie, sir.
You want to see my temper? Keep going.
Well, I will keep going because someone needs to expose you, President Biden, while you try to prevent Vladimir Putin from making inroads in Iraq or whatever country comes to your mind. Now, that leads me to this. There is a case building for high crimes and misdemeanors against the President of the United States. I asked a question weeks ago, and I really don't have any clarity from constitutional scholars, although I am trying to get a few on to answer the question. Can Joe Biden be charged if we just get information that Joe Biden committed illegal acts as Vice President of the United States? Can we punish him through impeachment as president for acts committed before his presidency? All of this reportedly happened in the period of time of 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, prior to him becoming president of the United States. There's a brand new batch of Hunter Biden text messages that are dropping right now that indicate that Hunter Biden demanded $10 million from a Chinese company and used his father as leverage to demand it. I'm tired of this, Kevin, it says. I can make $5 million in salary from any law firm in America. If you think it's about the money, it's not. The Bidens are the best at doing exactly what Chairman wants from this partnership. Please, let's not quibble over peanuts, said Hunter Biden. That was in August of 2017, during the same period in time where he claimed he had his dad right next to him. And that you better get me that money, and you better get me that money tonight. But the real question is it impeachable if we determine that Joe Biden was shaking down foreign countries and using his power and influence, even as vice president of the United States, to do so? Can we impeach him as president? That's a serious question. And I believe the answer is yes. I believe it's certainly yes. These things have been covered up. It devalues the vote of the American people in 2020. How many individuals who perhaps did not like Donald Trump or their middle-of-the-road mushy moderates decided to vote for Joe Biden, considering, well, he might not be very good, but at least he's not corrupt? Well, how many of you would have changed your vote? Corrupt as hell, and he has the Department of Justice and the mainstream media doing his bidding for him. Hunter Biden got very good acting as the bag man for his father, but make no mistake, Hunter Biden did not go to the bathroom until Joe Biden told him when and where. Now, he had his prostitutes, and he paid those through business expenses, and he had his crack pipe. He took care of that quite well.
And his gun.
And his gun, illegally bought. In the meantime, Joe Biden's parading this guy around state dinners. He's rubbing our nose in it. He's rubbing America's nose in the fact that he thinks he can get away with all of this. And if we have any country left, we have to stop him. 615-737-9986. Either call or text. It's 121 on Super Talk. Folks, I have a website and I have an offer code, and that offer code should be easy to remember. MURPHY. That's offer code Murphy, and the website is patriotmobile.com. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They offer dependable nationwide coverage on all three major networks. You get the best possible service, and you minimize the woke politics. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you get the same incredible offer that you've had for so many years. You get the same incredible service. You get to keep your telephone number, and you get to keep your cell phone. All you do is switch to the best provider that represents more of your values than some of the other woke companies out there. They're 100% U.S.-based in their customer service team, meaning you're going to talk to somebody right here in the States. Their coverage guarantees are right there in plain English, so you can understand those as well. And like I say, the same dependable service, and take a stand for your values. You make this switch today. Go to patriotmobile.com/Murphy. patriotmobile.com/Murphy, or when you call, get free activation with the offer code Murphy at 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT, or patriotmobile.com/Murphy. Call or visit that website today.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. Have you ever thought about why we invest in the stock market? Well, you often hear because we want to protect ourselves from inflation. Well, what is inflation? It's prices going up. Who's raising prices? Companies. What do you own when you own stocks? You own the companies raising prices, so it helps protect us from that. The other thing is this. Think about the most successful people you know. They're typically business owners. And you get to be a business owner when you invest in the stock market. Now, if we think about the stock market, a lot of people worry about, well, what if the stock market drops and it never comes back? Well, this is another thing that I like to explain to people. If the stock market goes down and it never comes back, what does that mean? That means that earnings went down and they never came back up again. So earnings went down. If earnings go down, what else goes down? Taxes go down. If taxes go away, what else goes away? The government goes away. If the government goes away, the FDIC goes away. So think about it. Everything is built on the stock market. That's why I don't ever worry about the stock market going down. Everybody has the same goal in mind when stocks go down. Get it to come back up, because we got to get earnings to come back up. Now, you have two things at your control to get earnings to come back up. One is sales. We can change what we're selling or sell more of whatever we have if we can. And if we can't do that, we can reduce our expenses. And that's exactly what companies do. You'll notice that they lay off people when things get bad, and hence that is why the stock market has recovered from every downturn throughout all of history. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A lot of discussion about inside the Beltway politics this hour of the show. We'll turn our attention back to Nashville, Tennessee. In the third hour of the show, I'm going to reflect on a campaign commercial by one of the candidates in the Nashville mayoral race. I take a little exception to this campaign commercial, and I think you should too. Plus, what to make of Congressman Andy Ogle's impeachment articles. You know, the Constitution is quite clear on the issue of impeachment. One can be impeached with evidence of treason, bribery, high crimes, or misdemeanors. Well, bribery seems to apply. My question is, can we retrofit crimes committed prior to his presidency into an impeachment proceeding, which is a political event, obviously. It's not a criminal event. That'll come later. I believe that you can, because you have defrauded the American people through your deception. Simply because it took us this long to catch you should not give you a pass on the matter. And so with that in mind, I think most certainly that's something that should be considered if considering articles of impeachment, although I think it's a little bit premature. We need to let all of this play out right now.
Just to take things to kind of a ridiculous extreme for the point, let's say that somebody found out that when he was vice president, he had murdered somebody and hid the body, and then that came to light. You'd still be able to arrest him for the criminality of having murdered somebody, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know that you can arrest him as president of the United States necessarily.
Wow, that's weird to me. Anyways.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I understand. You know, I mean, I guess that's a more difficult question. Naturally, people would say, well, of course you can arrest this person. But if you find evidence that this person killed someone and they're president of the United States, who's going to do that? Who has the authority to arrest him? I mean, serious question. I mean, the FBI work at his discretion. They answer to him. I mean, who arrests random president? Forget it's Joe Biden. Bell K, President Headless Bell, is president of the United States. And Matt Murphy uncovers evidence that Bell K, prior to his presidency, killed someone. And I hand that evidence to the authorities. I think you have to get him out of office before you can charge him.
So if somebody, for the sake of argument, Comey said, Mr. President, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to arrest you. I've found evidence of criminal activity. And Trump said, no, you're not allowed to arrest me. And he went ahead and did it anyway. Does that create some sort of governmental crisis?
I don't know. Smarter people than me need to answer.
Yeah, I mean, this is very confusing to me.
I mean, it is to me, too. The president isn't above the law, but as president of the United States, I mean, if James Comey tried to arrest me, I say, you're fired. I'm firing you. Now you have zero authority to do any of this. Now,
ultimately, you're delaying the inevitable, because if you did that, then somebody in Congress is going to be, oh, look, obstruction of justice. He fired him only to prevent himself from being arrested.
Look, the point to be made here is that the walls seem to be closing in on Joe Biden, to wit. The New York Times is now corroborating the whistleblower's account of what happened. They actually agreed with the concept that Merrick Garland did not give David Weiss total and complete authority to charge Hunter in any way that he wanted to, and did not allow him to take the case anywhere they wanted to go with it. The mainstream media initially wanted us to believe that, well, since Hunter has been charged and he got this sweetheart deal and he won't have to serve jail time, that closes the book on all of this Hunter Biden, Joe Biden bribery stuff. Most certainly it does not close the book on any of that. The fact of the matter is, Hunter Biden's prosecution and his pleading guilty to misdemeanors relating to 2 years of filings of late tax returns and gun purchase probation violations. Folks, the fact of the matter is, this guy got a sweetheart deal and everybody knows it. And not only did he get a sweetheart deal, but a lot of the facts in the case were excluded specifically to make sure that Joe Biden was not a part of this. And that was at the direction of Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, who serves at the pleasure of, wait for it, Joe Biden. I think the walls are closing in, and I don't believe for a second. When did I say this, Bell? You keep a fact check of me. What, 2 months ago that Joe Biden would never be the Democrat nominee?
Oh, no. You've said it since then, and you said it way before that,
I think I was longer than that. I'm certainly in the spring. I do not believe for a second that Joe Biden will make it to the first primary. And I don't think it will be necessarily health-related, although that ought to be the reason. This is closing into the point that he is going to be political poison. And the question is then, do they drag Kamala down with him so as to get to the real candidate the Democrats want, and that's Gavin Newsom. It's 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy for Savory Spice, 2 locations to serve you. You know, I was just thinking, I'm trying to lose some weight, and I'm actually down, I'm proud to say, 11 pounds in the last couple of weeks. And I'm going to get to tell you more about my process and how I'm getting things done down the road. But one of the reasons that I'm able to do this with such relative ease is because of Savory Spice. Savory Spice has all of the wonderful, delicious flavors that you want on your food, and it kind of ups the food game when you're eating food that is bland. Last night, for example, plain piece of salmon, like 6-ounce piece of protein along with some veggies. And I took a bite of it, and I'm like, man, this tastes bland. And then I pulled out some alderwood smoked sea salt. I pulled out some of the veggie sprinkle that is offered at Savory Spice. I sprinkled up the broccoli. I sprinkled up the zucchini. I sprinkled some of the alderwood smoked sea salt on the salmon, and c'est magnifique, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe speak a foreign language. All you need to do is go to 2 locations, one or 2 locations. One is at L&L Market, which I'll be at L&L Market on Friday. Matter of fact, more on that later on. L&L Market on Charlotte Pike, or in Franklin, next to Gray's Pharmacy, right off of the square. Tell Holly or David or the rest of the crew when you go that Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So it's basically the Joe Biden malarkey defense and how it is crumbling before our very eyes. Your thoughts on all of this? 135 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Matt
Give
Murphy
me a
with
break.
you. Mr. President, you don't deserve it. You've had plenty of breaks. You can call me all the names you want. You can say anything you want about me, but it does not change the fact that you're in a lot of trouble here.
You ain't black.
Well, that's true, actually, Mr. President. I am not. I'm not. I have some American Indian heritage, Cherokee heritage, but other than that,
Well, you clearly didn't know who to vote for.
I identify as, well, that's true. I identify as Caucasian. One of the funnier policy things that Joe Biden's doing is trying to label the economy as a good thing and put his name on it. You know, Obama did not want Obamacare to be called Obamacare, but once it was called Obamacare, they tried to twist it into a good thing. Joe Biden's people are deciding that they're going to call this economy Bidenomics because they think that's cute. Do they not understand that most Americans are suffering and they recognize that their dollar cannot be stretched as far as it was stretched back in the Trump era now? Apparently they actually believe this.
And guess what? Bidenomics is working.
Bidenomics is working. Bidenomics is working. When Joe Biden took office, inflation was at 1.4%. Inflation's been over 4% for the last 2 years. And it's all because of his $1.9 trillion so-called stimulus. In the meantime, not only are they cooking the books and trying to talk about Bidenomics, they're using their malarkey defense as malarkey regarding the corruption of Joe Biden as vice president of the United States. David is in Hendersonville with thoughts on all of this. Hey, David, how are you?
Doing good, man. How you doing, buddy?
I'm well, thank you.
Hey, before I tell you what I was going to tell you, Bidenomics, let me see. I'm pretty sure he stole that from Reagan. But anyway, you know how they like to say Trump is a racist?
Yeah, they call him everything under the sun.
Yeah, well, you know, he is the only president that if you go back in genealogy, trace him back, this is including Obama, he is the only president that has never, his family has never owned a slave. And that point.
George Washington owned slaves.
I know.
Living president.
No. Oh, Trump is the only president that his family never owned a slave. George Washington did.
Thomas Jefferson owned slaves.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. All the other presidents.
He didn't.
Yes,
I get it.
didn't.
I get what you're saying. Okay.
Even Pocahontas.
I don't think Ronald Reagan was a racist.
No, he wasn't a racist. But if you go back in his family genealogy, they did on slaves.
I mean, David, and thank you. I mean, we got a lot of road noise there, and it's wearing my eardrums, and I apologize for that. But thank you for the call, David. I appreciate you, and I'm not coming down on David, but I don't think it matters. If my family owned as slaves, I don't believe my family did. I've not traced the specifics of my genealogy, but my people go back to the Cherokee Nation, certainly on my mother's side. My father's side is a little more murky because, my dad was actually adopted by his stepfather, and so who knows where that goes. But if you trace my heritage back to somebody that was a slave owner, that doesn't make me racist. I guess I love you, David. I'm not trying to clap on you, but I'm having a difficult time understanding the logic. Donald Trump's family was the only family that didn't own slaves, so that proves he's not racist. What? No, it doesn't. Every other president was racist because their family owned slaves? It doesn't matter.
I saw where he got that from, and I think the piece was meant to be ironical. Is that a word? Because it listed
ironical. That sounds like something Dan Mandis came up with. Ironical.
It was posed as which of the living presidents' family has never owned slaves, and of course Obama's in there. So people's assumption is, oh well, obviously Barack Obama's family never did. Well, yeah, they did on his mother's side.
Yeah.
And it's Trump's family that has no lineage back to slaveholders.
Well, I suppose it's an interesting fact. I mean, and so to your credit, David, that is an interesting fact that Trump is the only former president of the United States of America who we cannot find any lineage by which they own slaves. But one way or the other, Donald Trump will always be a racist, according to liberal leftist no good media. These liars and the lying lies that they tell.
Well, you have to remember, he has a Jewish son-in-law, and his daughter converted to Judaism. His grandson is Jewish, and he's an anti-Semite.
And he moved our American
embassy to Jerusalem. Yeah, he's an
after years and years and years of presidents promising that they would. We'll get to that. We'll try to do that.
Clear anti-Semite.
There would be such remember how many times we were told the level of political unrest that would happen, the level of actual unrest, the level of violence that would be happening in Israel on a regular basis if we moved the United States embassy to Jerusalem. And Donald Trump, you know what Donald Trump did? I miss these days. Oh, man. This moment in time makes me hearken back to the days of the Trump presidency, and I love him for this. With the media howling, oh, you can't do this. Oh, there's going to be chaos and violence, and oh, so many people are going to die. And Donald Trump said, move it and make it so. Get it done. Move it. Do it. I can do it by myself. Done. And he did it, and they opened it up, and nothing. After all of that blah, de, blah, de, blah, de, blah. I want to say Joe Biden claimed he was going to move it back. And maybe I'm wrong there. While the president of the United States, I've looked this up during the break, while the president of the United States enjoys a degree of civil immunity from lawsuit while in office, it is legally untested whether they also enjoy criminal immunity from arrest or prosecution. Neither civil nor criminal immunity is explicitly granted in the Constitution or in any federal statute. But then that begs the question, who could arrest him? The question of whether or not the sitting president of the United States can be arrested while in office is currently a matter of legal dispute. It is currently the policy of the United States Department of Justice that the president should and could not be indicted for crimes while in office. Well, if that's the case, then who else would arrest him?
Well, and if that's the case, then there are two separate tiers of justice, even if only temporarily until he's out of office.
Well, right. I mean, we've always known that certainly in civil court, there are two tiers of justice. You can't sue the president of the United States. And so now...
You mean as president?
As president of the United States. But afterwards you can. So the process would be simple. If President Belkay's in office and he's issuing executive orders and proclamation, and you must wear your underwear. Have you ever seen? I'm getting distracted now, but have you ever seen the movie Bananas?
Squirrel. No.
Woody Allen, Bananas.
No.
There's a coup. It's like it takes it up, very similar to the Cuban coup of Fidel Castro, and there's this character that is similar to Fidel Castro, and he takes over a country. And he's giving his first speech after taking over the country. Great movie if you've never seen it. It's called Bananas. I've been bitten by a snake. I've been bitten by a snake. And in the first speech following the coup, he says, today I declare that anyone not changing their underwear every day will be prosecuted, and you must change your underwear 2 times a day, and also you must wear your underwear on the outside so we can check. And Woody Allen's line is, he kind of looks to the camera and says, he's gone mad with power. No, I don't think there's anything you can do. Jim might have some answer. Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm good. Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hey, well, you were talking earlier about can Biden be prosecuted, or shall we say impeached, for stuff he did as vice president. It's fairly obvious that because he took money from the Chinese and the Ukrainians, I mean, I don't know, we sending any money to the Ukrainians that we weren't sending to them before he got in office?
A little bit,
yeah. I mean, it seems as though perhaps that they're benefiting from buying them off.
Yeah, they're getting what they paid. They're getting what they paid for, apparently.
That's what I'm saying. They're getting what they paid for, so isn't that an ongoing enterprise? And therefore impeachable.
Well, there's no doubt. And I think it's pretty clear upon rereading of the Constitution of the United States that you can impeach a president, but it does not say that these crimes, high crimes and misdemeanors, must have been committed while president of the United States. If you can orchestrate a chain of custody between Joe Biden, Jim Biden, Hunter Biden, as vice president of the United States or beyond, that he specifically offered quid pro quos to these individuals, including the Ukrainians. He announced his quid pro quo for the Ukrainians. I mean, remember? Oh, we told him you got to fire that prosecutor or you don't get the money. The $1 billion in loan guarantees. You don't get the money. I'll get on a plane, Jack. Well, you don't make the decisions. The president, call him. Remember he said that? Joe Biden, such hubris in that man. Larry's in Clarksville, next up on the Matt Murphy Show. Hello, Larry.
Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
For taking my call.
What's up?
And I had to take you off speaker because Bell K said squirrel and my darn dogs went nuts. So, but, that to be said, do you think for 1 second, Matt, that if you or I had lied on a federal forum to purchase a firearm, we would have gotten the sweet deal that Hunter Biden got?
Well, of course not.
And there's already enough information out there. I mean, they've got all these bank accounts that money has been transferred into that go back to all of the Bidens. And I'm going to have to hang up because I'm about to lose my crap. I don't want to put on.
Well, you don't want to. No, I mean, of course, Hunter Biden's getting special treatment. There's no question about that. Don't lose your crap, Larry. And just for your dog, squirrel. Squirrel, 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 squirrel. Two things. I completely botched the telling of the story about bananas, and so people are telling me that the movie sounds awful. Don't judge the movie based on my crappy rendition of what went down during a scene in the movie. Secondarily, Matt, please stop saying that Ogles is introducing articles of impeachment over bribery. He said twice now on your station that this is over the mishandling of the border. Okay, if I said that, I apologize. It was not my intention. I believe that that's where you can get him on articles of impeachment, is on bribery. I don't think the case has been made. We've not put all of the dots together. I think Andy Ogles is getting way in front of the parade by introducing his articles early. Now, he says he wants to get it on the front page. I know very well what his point is, and I'd love to have Andy on the show to talk about it. And, Andy, you've got my number. You're welcome to call us and get on the show anytime you want. That said, no. The problem is in order to – and thank you for that, Woody Allen ruined. But I thought it was a funny movie, but I haven't seen it in 20 years. So I'll tell you what we'll do. Take a call or two. In hour number 3, I want to play what Andy said this morning on the Dan Mandis Show, Nashville's Morning News, regarding articles of impeachment and why I think a case is building on the bribery front. I do not believe that you have him on the southern border, because you have to prove intent. You have to offer a chain of evidence proving intent. Now, we all know what the intent is. We all know what's going on. But knowing and proving are two different things. So we'll do that in just a minute. Right now, it's Pat's turn in Cookeville. Hey, Pat, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for calling and holding.
Well, sure. I was listening to you guys talking about the president and basically how there's so many things you can't do to move him out. However, I keep thinking about the fact that he is the military commander-in-chief. Why can't they use the military route and get the military doctor to evaluate him, call a military medical board, call him not fit for duty, and just board him out? He is in the military, basically, at least by position.
Well, it's a decent thought, and let's continue the thought experiment. Thank you for the call out of Cookeville, Pat. I appreciate you. So you have several ways to remove a president, and the military isn't involved in any of them because our founding fathers were very concerned, and rightly so, over military coups. They didn't like the idea, which is why the president of the United States is not and may not be an active member of the military. He is a civilian commander-in-chief, and that's by design. We did not want active members of our military to be in charge of our government on purpose. So for that reason, the military may not unilaterally decide to remove a president for any reason. The Joint Chiefs of Staff cannot decide, hey, this guy's nuts. He's great. Now, they can participate in it, and that's a different thing because you have the 25th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which is one of the ways that a president may be removed. And frankly, I would argue that the 25th Amendment is probably the most applicable reason to remove this president that I've heard of, but that would take involvement from his cabinet.
And give you Kamala.
And it would give you Kamala. Well, and any removal would give you Kamala unless she's found to be complicit in some of the wrongdoing. So the text of the 25th Amendment talks about presidential succession, and the vice president shall become president, and that whenever there's a vacancy in the office of the vice president, that the president nominates a vice president that takes that vacancy over. And then presidential declaration of inability. Whenever the president transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives written declaration that he is unable to discharge his powers and duties of the office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. And then there's Section 4, which is what we're talking about. I'll tell you what Section 4 says in just a moment. It is the declaration by vice president and cabinet of a president's inability. And then there's the impeachment side of things. We'll get into all of that. Plus, we'll tell you what Andy said this morning on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Tennessee Men's Clinic, for those who need, there are two locations to serve you. One is in Midtown. They've been there for decades now. The other recently opened, brand new, in Cool Springs, Franklin, Tennessee. Here's what Tennessee Men's Clinic does differently, or at least here's what they started. They started a process by which they focus specifically and uniquely on men's health and men's health alone, because they know that men, you don't know your numbers, right? We whistle past the graveyard when it comes to our health all the time. And so when it comes to your blood pressure or cholesterol or your T levels, whatever it might be, Tennessee Men's Clinic knows that they need to find out those numbers and find out where you are in order to assert themselves as to whether or not you need something from them that can help you with your energy levels or even your bedroom levels. It's just that simple. They'll tell you if it's something else, they'll send you on your way and say, maybe you need more sleep or maybe you need to get a sleep apnea test or something like that. But if it involves some of the numbers that they work with, they're going to prescribe a successful plan of attack to get you back up to the energy levels that you've come to appreciate and maybe that you've lost over the last several years. So give them a call at 615-208-9090, 208-9090, or go to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Tell them Matt Murphy sent you to the one and only Tennessee Men's Clinic.
It is 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Got an excessive heat warning in effect starting tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. That'll last until Friday at 8 p.m. So stay shaded and hydrated. Right now, 92 degrees here in Music City. Got a full weather forecast coming your way, just about 2 minutes. Daniel Penny, the former Marine who was seen on video putting a fellow subway rider in a fatal chokehold, pleading not guilty to 2 charges today in a New York City court. Penny is accused of killing subway performer Jordan Neely, who witnesses say was acting erratically on May 1st when Penny intervened. Aaron Katursky has more on how both the defense and the prosecution might use Penny's statements to police in an upcoming trial.
He's quoted saying that he immediately threw his stuff down, saying he didn't care if he went to jail, being verbally perhaps threatening, but not physically threatening. There was never any indication that he was actually violent. So these statements cut 2 ways. The defense can say that Penny wasn't trying to hide his conduct. He was matter of fact with police and believed he was responding to a legitimate threat against other passengers. Prosecutors can say there was no real threat. It was just a guy shouting on the train and he didn't have to die.
Back here in Tennessee, license plate readers, the pilot program for LPRs in Nashville, has been going on for 3 months, and we're now seeing the first data. It's showing that areas with the most stops have been in non-white and low-income areas. Here's Channel 4's Ryan Breslin.
The Community Oversight Board says that's concerning because it was stated that LPRs would be equitably distributed. However, they compared that to MNPD vehicle stops and say that those appear to be more evenly distributed.
In the 3 months, there were 733 verified hits across 4 quadrants, and if a license plate matches something in that database, it's qualified as a hit. And over in Arizona, firefighters in Scottsdale say they have made great progress on a 2,500-acre wildfire that started on Tuesday afternoon and caused over 1,000 families to evacuate. Here's Alex Stone.
Progress has been made completely encircling the flames with Fireline, a result of a hotshot team and hand crews using tools to dig down to mineral soil and clear brush that could burn all the way around the fire. Tiffany Davila with the Arizona Department of Forestry says there will still be some burning in hot, dry, windy conditions.
There are still some pockets of fuel that have to burn, so people in this area may see flames.
But the goal is to keep those flames inside of the containment lines. 1 building was destroyed in the fire.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
All right, friends, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief located in Franklin wants to see you, those of you with back, neck, knee, or any sort of pain in any movable part on your body. It's as simple as this. If you have parts that hurt, you want to do what it needs to, you want to do what it takes to get that hurt out of your system. And sometimes it can be debilitating. I've talked to people with major back issues that have been to the Dr. Gill Center, and they walk away with, life-saving results. I mean, if you think of in terms of life quality, those life-saving results can be yours, and it takes a telephone call or a visit to the Dr. Gill website. Friends, I did this, and I am a client. I know how much it works. Go see Dr. Wendy, Dr. V, Dr. Dominic, or the rest of the group at the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief for less than $50. They will give you a complete examination. They will walk through their findings with you. They'll take x-rays. They'll talk to you about those x-rays. They'll show you what they see on there so you can understand what's going on inside of your body, and then they get to work helping you with the most modern techniques, alleviate that pain without the need for pills and without the need for surgery. As they like to say, don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill at 615-882-4838, 882-4838. Call today. Back after it, hour number 3 of the Matt Murphy Show in progress right now, 2:06 to be precise. Thank you for being here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN, also on Talk TV, where Bel K's being a funny guy. I see what you did there. You misspelled Adams. Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I was avoiding trademark infringement. Thank you.
That's a great out. I love it when a guy's backed in a corner and he finds a window to jump out of. That's pretty funny. Talk TV on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Twitch. You're invited to be a part of the show there, where I'm being accused of being a Trump basher, I think. I'm not really sure what's going on over there. But Bel K is likely to put a cute, funny, pithy little comment about the proceedings going on here from noon until 3. And he writes, noon to 3, it's all Matt Murphy. The latest news, you and the guy who played Cousin It on the original Addams Family. And then he misspelled Adams.
No, I was avoiding. You're going to get us sued. Stop saying it like that. You can't copyright Cousin It. You can copyright Addams Family.
As a wise man once said, take the light bulb out of your mouth. You don't know where that light bulb has been. Discussing the possibility of Joe Biden's removal from office, and I'm seeing the likelihood of Joe Biden running as the Democrat primary nominee lessen and lessen and lessen. You already have his age as a factor, major factor. The fact that he's infirm to the point that he can't deliver a speech without numerous gaffes. So many, there's too many to mention. Just today, he announced that Vladimir Putin was at war with Iraq. That was the second time he's done that in 24 hours. He also dismissed the concept of him being involved in his son's business dealings, although they have changed they've moved the goalpost on that. I want to get into that in just a moment.
So it was the Russians that killed Bo?
Yeah, right. Because he died in Iraq.
Yeah.
As he has well established over the years, Bo Biden, oh, my son died in Iraq. No, your son did not die in Iraq. It might have been related in some fashion to Iraq, but he did not die in Iraq. And you did not have a conversation with some guy on the Amtrak train about you being the best and the brightest. And you did, all of these. And Corn Pop was not a bad dude. And, he wasn't. And
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Well, even if, I don't know which is worse. The fact that we know that story's not true or if it were. We visited that before, right? If that story's true, and the mainstream media gave him a pass on this. If that story's true, that's a story about a white guy going into the black community and threatening to beat black people up. And literally, he claimed to have taken a piece of chain link fence and threatened to thrash and beat Corn Pop with a chain link fence.
I did not say that. That's not true. I did not say that.
I think you did. Mr. President. All right, there's some new information coming out today about Hunter Biden's WhatsApp messaging regarding his father and his father's knowledge about all of these things. And we're discussing the possibility of removing Joe Biden from the presidency and how that would happen. You could invoke the 25th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. That would involve Kamala Harris. It would involve the president's cabinet. And I promise you it's not going anywhere. The Democrats, if anything, are good at rallying around their person. It's easy for them because they have the media on their side. The mainstream media being complicit in all of this is necessary for Democrats to continue to take control of the narrative as they do in so many ways. And we're here to break through that. At some point, they'll come after us, but we're ready for them. So what does that leave us? That leaves us articles of impeachment. What does the Constitution of the United States of America say about impeachment? I feel like we have been over this time and time and time again. And we've been over it mainly because Donald Trump was president. And the liberals obsessed over getting him out of office to the point that they labored over how to figure out a way to finagle the 25th Amendment into play, claiming that he was insane. And then they went down articles of impeachment, the road of articles of impeachment twice, the first being for an innocuous telephone call. By the way, Donald Trump was proven right on that telephone call. Donald Trump inquired to whether or not Joe Biden had tried to influence the business practices of a particular business with regard to who the prosecutors were prosecuting that business. And we now know everything that Donald Trump brought up was correct. Joe Biden did all of those things. The evidence shows us. And the second impeachment was even more ridiculous than the first impeachment, inasmuch as it was after he was president of the United States, and they tried to impeach him after the fact so as to prevent him from running for president again. And when that did not work, they decided that they would begin the proceedings of prosecuting him as many times as humanly possible, hoping something would stick. So Lauren Boebert has introduced articles, I think. Marjorie Taylor Greene has introduced articles, and our own Congressman Andy Ogles has introduced articles of impeachment against the President of the United States. The Ogles articles, and I may have misspoke earlier in the show, I don't want to misdirect anyone. I think the way to get Biden is through the bribery charge, and I think you have to wait for all of that evidence to come out. The Oversight Committee, James Comer's not going to stop. Don't worry. He'll go after these people. We'll get to the bottom of this. And on the other side of it, Chuck Grassley, as long as Chuck Grassley is above ground, Chuck Grassley is going to go after this. I'm not being cute. Andy Ogles made an appearance on Nashville's Morning News this morning with Dan Mandis. And as I like to say, Andy and I probably agree on far more than we disagree on, but for whatever reason, we got sideways years ago. And Andy is welcome on this show anytime he wants to come on. I'm done inviting him. I mean, it's an open invitation. Let's put it that way. But he made an appearance on Nashville's Morning News discussing articles of impeachment. And here's what he said. Dan Mandis asked the right question. You have the question in here too? You have the question too, right? Mandis asked the right question. With the three separate articles of impeachment being presented and with competing ideas, are we doing this too early? And what is the specific thing, Mandis asked, that you think is most incriminating against Joe Biden? Question and answer from Nashville's Morning News. Go.
If there was one thing that you could say that is the most profound impeachable offense, what would it be?
Wow. In the Oversight Committee,
I know this is a hard one because there's so many.
Yeah, I mean, there are some missing links in the case. Some of the financial documents, there's some pieces of the puzzle that they don't have yet. So I would say that one would be on hold, and I would go to the southern border because of the fentanyl crisis, because of, again, the number of Chinese nationals that are. And these aren't folks necessarily that are coming here looking for a better, life. They're coming here to undermine the United States of America. The terrorists from the Middle East that are coming here. I mean, these, to protect the American people, to have a secure border, we've got to get back to the idea of that. And look, you and I could be, or you and maybe one of your listeners could be on different sides of the coin as to what the solution, the long-term solution for immigration policy is. But we must all agree that you have to have a secure southern border. And when again, think about this for a minute. 125 terrorists, they're on the terror watch list, came into our country.
Andy's phone broke up at that point, and we lost kind of the back end, but I think you get the sense of it. So Ogles is suggesting, and I think it's a unique proposition, that we try the president of the we impeach the president of the United States for his lack of action on the southern border. Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution says the president, the vice president, and all civil officers of the United States shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors. So I believe in analyzing what Ogle's point is, and I don't dismiss it, but I don't think you're going to succeed either. Well, one, obviously this is an exercise in futility so long as the Democrats control the Senate. Democrats don't care about the guilt or innocence of one of their own. They don't care. One of the main differences, if not the main difference, between conservative Republicans and Democrats, and I say conservative Republicans specifically because I think there are some Republicans that act a little more like Democrats than they should. The central difference that I've identified in my 23 years of doing this is that Democrats don't have morals. They don't, and even beyond that sounds like a personal attack or a collective attack, and I don't want it to sound that way. Let me say it this way. I have found that Republicans have basic core foundational values that they bring with them to Washington, D.C., and that for the most part, they don't allow those values to change in the course of representing the people that they are elected to represent. So sometimes that means that they act in opposition to the majority of the people they represent. But that is what they are elected to do, to act as a voice for those individuals, to reflect, to act as a mirror to the prevailing feelings of those who elected you, but sometimes to act as a ballast over that prevailing mood. It's the reason that we have is the reason we have a representative republic as opposed to the will of the mob or a direct democracy, is that we don't believe in the will of the mob. We believe in the rule of law. Republicans bring those basic functional and fundamental values with them to D.C., and I think they hold on to them. And they're not going to violate them for political principle or purpose. In other words, Republicans don't go along with things just because they think it's good politically, if they do not believe that it is right. Democrats do not have, or the Democrats are not encumbered by the burden of core principles. All they want is power and control. It's almost as if power and control are their core principles. And as a result, they are willing to do things and go places that we should not be willing to go. The old adage, you fight fire with fire, I respect that. But I fear that we become that which we claim to detest if we try to use their unethical practices against them. And I understand there are differences of opinion on this. The great one, Mark Levin, and I disagree on this. He wants to fight fire with fire, my friends. You go after him.
You dope.
They bring a knife, you bring a gun. They bring a gun, you bring a Sherman tank, you dope. I do not want to be accused of doing that which I detest just because it's our side doing it to their side. And that leads me to Andy's concept of articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. Here's the problem. We all know what Joe Biden's doing on the southern border. We all know why he's doing it. We understand the principled purpose, but they never say it. And the Constitution gives broad latitude for the executive branch of government to exercise their duty in a manner of their choosing, absent interference from the legislative branch or the judicial process. In other words, what Joe Biden has to do is go before the Senate and claim he's doing I'm doing my best. Now, we know that that's not true. That would be their defense. So if you bring up articles of impeachment that I guess it would be a dereliction of duty But see, even a dereliction of duty does not constitute treason, bribery, or a high crime or misdemeanor. Unless you prove, you have to find a chain of events that would demonstrate that Joe Biden willfully and intentionally went against the rule of law. Now, I think you could make that case, but you have to prove it. So I don't begrudge Andy from taking this angle. It's an interesting thought exercise, but I don't think it's ever coming to anything. And it's most certainly a waste of money. The only way that you get the Senate on your side is if you demonstrate a bribe or a high crime specific. And I think that's about to be proven. If we give James Comer and others in the House of Representatives enough time, I believe that they will provide the evidence that makes it almost impossible for certain Democrats to not take notice in the Senate. The Constitution designs impeachment to be a heavy lift. We should use it as such. It is designed not to be thrown around the way that we're throwing it around. Does that mean I think Joe Biden's an honest man? Of course I don't. I think Joe Biden is a liar, and he has proven as much over his years in quote-unquote public service. I believe Joe Biden is lying when he says that he's not enriched himself through his power and prestige as a public servant in the United States Senate and as vice president of the United States. Biden's family is corrupt, and they've enriched themselves on the backs of the American taxpayer, potentially to the tune of millions of dollars to the Chinese and billions of dollars to the Ukrainians. Make no mistake, Joe Biden is dirty as the day is long. And I only wish the voters had seen fit to never have him step foot in the White House. But impeachment is a process that shouldn't be taken lightly. And if you're going to throw accusations around, you got to have proof. And I think the proof's coming on the bribery front. Maybe we're just laying the groundwork. 222 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. When it comes to large home repairs, homeowners, they whistle past the graveyard. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to deal with it. Well, if it comes to your foundation or waterproofing your home, you need to deal with it. You need to think about it. And I want you to think about USS. United Structural Systems. They'll come out to your house. They're problem solvers. They provide peace of mind to their customers, you, the homeowner. If you're not getting someone who's worried about selling you something, that's not what they do. Upselling you, that's not what they do at USS, but someone who is there to educate you, to help you understand what some of those signs that you're seeing mean and what you can do to solve that problem as inexpensively as possible. At USS, their only measure of success is how satisfied the homeowner is, not a closing ratio, and homeowners are satisfied when they use USS. Look, I'll be frank with you, folks. You don't call United Structural Systems for a foundation issue or for a waterproofing issue because you want to. It's the last call you want to make. But if you have a foundation issue, if you have a waterproofing issue, don't you want to call someone that you can trust? Over 25,000 customers have trust USS, and you can be the next one. Since 1994, they've been the best. USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com or 615-488-7855. 488-7855 for USS.
Bidenomics, the first baby box in Middle Tennessee, and Canadian wildfires continue to cloud skies with smoke here in the United States. Those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Double M. Another Double M, Matt Murphy with you. It is 2:27, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So apparently in New York City, you can run around the streets of Manhattan with your meat and 2 veg out. What? With your, Big Al and the boys.
What the hell is that?
Twig and berries? No? But they're cracking down on wood-fired pizzerias. Have you seen this story, Mac Morey?
Ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. Oh,
what are you talking about?
Speaking of pizzas, did you see did you see the story about Pompeii? Okay, so
no.
We know Mount Vesuvius, Pompeii, right? Mount Vesuvius went off, and the people of Pompeii were kind of like frozen in time because the ash descended upon them. I just had this story pulled up. Man, I hope I haven't lost it. There it is. Here it is. Okay, so there's a 2,000-year-old painting that was recently discovered in the ruins of Pompeii. There's a lot of portions of the ruins of Pompeii that they've yet to remove the ash and the debris and kind of uncover. But they have found place settings, they found like lunch settings, they found people who were seemingly like asleep in their beds when they were overrun with the volcano and the ash and all of that. So, I mean, it's just like a snapshot in time, a moment in time from 2,000 years ago. Well, there is a fresco that was painted on a Pompeii wall at what was apparently a fairly well-to-do person's house. And that fresco included a doughy disc with toppings on it. Oh. I've got a picture of it right here that some are saying is evidence of the first pizza.
Wow.
And here's the thing.
Pompeio's in Italy.
Pompeii's in Italy, right? So maybe no pepperoni on it, no extra cheese, but it has certainly caught people's eye. It is a disc of dough that was on a wall when Pompeii was buried by a volcano in 79 AD, nearly 2,000 years ago. But here's the funny part. In a statement, an official declaration published on Tuesday, archaeologists are insistent that the dish portrayed in the fresco is not a pizza. Now, I will, after your news, Mac Morey, I will come over and I will show you the photograph.
Yeah, I got to see this.
It is a round disc on a tray, a larger tray of food. It appears to have some form of basil or leaf on it. It has a variety of different spices and other toppings. Here's what experts, quote unquote, say. Most of the characteristic ingredients are missing, namely tomatoes. I'm like, whatever, man.
Okay.
It's a round disc of dough with stuff on it. Isn't that a pizza?
That's a pizza. What are we doing?
Still, they allowed the flat, round dough topped with pomegranate, spices, and what may have been a precursor to pesto. They're calling it an ancestor to the modern dish.
Expecting stuffed crust and like what are you talking about?
What do you want? You want sausage, pepperoni, and extra cheese?
What's going on?
You want the little pizza? You want the little Caesar?
Yeah,
little Caesars
that's what he wants. Yeah,
next door to it. Come on, man. They found pizza in Pompeii. That's the real news. Here's this fake stuff coming up with Mac Morey on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 2:31. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. It's got 93 degrees right now over here on Music Row, and starting tomorrow at 11 a.m., an excessive heat warning in effect, and that goes until Friday at 8 p.m., so make sure you find some shade and stay hydrated. Full weather forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. President Biden delivered his remarks in the United States in front of a crowd in Chicago this afternoon. Biden acknowledged that he has more work to do on the economy, but says his economic policies are already working for the American people. Here's Faith Abube.
President Biden credited his administration for significant investments in infrastructure and legislative wins that he says have led to a historically low unemployment rate. The remarks delivered on a stage in Chicago, decorated with large blue signs that read Bidenomics.
Bidenomics is about building an economy
from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down. And there are three fundamental changes that we decided to make with the help of the Congress and been able to do it.
On the list, the president said making smart investments in America, educating and empowering workers to grow the middle class, and promoting competition to lower costs for small businesses.
Baby boxes. News 2 says that a woman raised money and has brought the first safe haven baby box to Middle Tennessee, specifically in Hendersonville. These boxes are outside of a fire station or a hospital, and they immediately notify officials when a baby is put inside. The first baby box in the state was placed in Knoxville, and it came to use for the first time last month. The baby boy was put inside that box and was believed to have been less than 30 minutes old. The cost to install the box is around $23,000. And there's been a majority of funds raised to put another box here in the mid-state. And thick plumes of Canadian wildfire smoke engulfing swaths of the Midwest are expected to linger as the smoke will spread east. Alex Perez.
That scene, that skyline that we usually see has been completely swallowed up by that smoky haze. Now, I checked the air quality index here in Chicago, and it is slightly better today, but we are still in the unhealthy category, which is where we were all day yesterday. And it's kind of unclear when exactly the air will return to those safe levels that we're used to.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. An update on where we are with the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway is forthcoming. I hope this show, if not this week, as it is up in the air whether or not those renovations will be a reality. And it would be a sad day if they are not. I'm telling you, folks, I'm only the guy that's ringing the bell. I'm the town crier, and I can only ring the bell. You have to answer it. If you want to save Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, the neighbors have now filed some sort of legal complaint. So they're trying to figure out what that means for the decision-making on the part of the Metro Council. I don't believe this is representative of all the neighborhoods. There's not a single person that lives near that fairgrounds that did not know that there was a racetrack near them when they moved there, unless they were there in 1903. So more on that coming up in just a couple of minutes. I want to make this dealer's choice, and that would make Bell K and Mac Morey the dealers. So get Max throw something at his window. I'm going to make the next topic of discussion dealer's choice. I can either discuss a naked man in Franklin. I can discuss a dead airport worker in San Antonio. I can discuss the odds of Major League Baseball coming to Nashville.
Ooh.
Or I can talk about the most popular Tennessee tourist destinations in the last 16 months. I mean, I'm
not sure you want my vote.
That is a hodgepodge. Naked guy in Franklin, which I think is Hunter Biden, honestly. Have you seen these photos?
You want to get high?
Let's talk about the naked guy first.
Yeah, that's another one.
Let's just go ahead and talk about the naked. I made a commitment to myself 20 years ago that if there was a story about naked people, monkeys, Waffle House, or Florida, I'm not passing it up. And so there you go. And if you get me there was one time, I remember this like it was yesterday. There was one time about 10 years ago, I got a story about it. I'm not making this up, about some naked guy with a monkey at a Waffle House in Florida. I'm like, my career's complete. So, is there anything illegal about standing in your backyard naked?
No.
I don't know what backyard.
I don't know,
yeah.
I'm assuming that there's a huge privacy fence.
Where's your backyard?
Exactly. That's the question.
So it's a little, the law is sticky on this. Now,
dude.
What? It's hot out, man.
Whatever.
We're sweating. You gotta shed those clothes. So in Franklin, Tennessee, this happened a couple of days ago. I've been meaning to talk about it since. Police in Franklin are asking for the public. They might, Mac, if there's an update on this story, do a little research on this, because this story.
Should I Google naked man in Franklin?
Yeah, you do that, and then you go see HR a little bit later on. Like what? You Google naked men in Franklin, Tennessee, and you tell me what pops up. And if something pops up that says "Welcome back, Mac," then you and I need to talk. Or more importantly, you and Hannah need to talk.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
This story was from last Friday, and I saw it over the weekend. I wasn't here last Friday, so I didn't get it. So there may be an update on this. Police in Franklin were saying that they are asking for the public's help to identify a man caught on camera standing naked behind a business on Harpeth Industrial Court. Officials say the unidentified man exposed himself to several people in a nearby parking lot. This was according to Fox Nashville, Fox 17. Cash reward. Know this man? Police in Franklin say he was standing naked behind a business on Harpeth, exposed himself to several people in a nearby parking lot. Call Crime Stoppers at yada, yada, yada if you recognize him. Anyone who recognizes him said to have a cash reward. So in the photographs, it looks like he's in a yard. And there seems to be hedges or bushes around for the most part. Now, have you seen the photos?
Yep.
Now, this is tricky. Now,
this is
now, I mean, it's ski. You're standing around naked outside. What are you doing, man?
Yeah, just can you go inside?
What are you doing with your life if you're standing around outside naked? I mean, honestly. I mean, I understand nudism and all of that. And, I had a guy years ago who was with the Shelby County Nudist Society, and we had him on the show.
Wow.
And thankfully, he did not come in nude. And, for nudists, it's about, I don't know, letting it fly free in nature or whatever. It's not all sexual in nature. But who knows what this guy is? My question is, if you have a privacy fence and you're walking around naked, if you've got neighbors peering through the cracks in your privacy, that's on them, right?
That's no different than them looking in your window when you're in the shower.
That's what I would think. So if you've made or taken the appropriate steps to make sure that people cannot regularly see you, then that, if you want to garden naked or whatever, that's up to you.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, he was not taking the necessary steps. And I'm telling you, if you tell me that I'm wrong, Mac, that this looks like Hunter Biden. I mean, doesn't it?
You want to get high?
Does it
sounds like him, too.
That's unfortunate for him. It does.
That's the there's something freeing about. I mean, just ask streakers. This stuff has been going along for a long time. Would you ever? Why are you making that face before?
No face. No face.
You did. You made it. I saw the face. It's like you just sucked on a lemon. Like, don't ask me this question, Murphy. Don't ask me if I've ever run naked through the streets.
Mac, did you know there was a streaker on the Oscars in the 70s? Somebody literally ran across the stage naked
Have you not
on
heard
TV.
this?
Whoa.
The response. I think I can recite the response word for word. David Niven, who was an actor back in the day in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. David Niven was on stage presenting an award. And a naked man, I mean, it was a big deal. Streaking was a big deal back in the 70s.
It was a fad back in the 70s.
Yeah, Ray Stevens had a #1 hit on all platforms with the streak back then. And it was a big fad that people would get naked and run in public places and, woo, look at me. And this guy somehow managed to get by security, and he ran across stage during the Oscars telecast. And and David Niven said in this droll, I guess, British accent, imagine being that fellow. The only thing the world knows about you are your shortcomings. I mean, just perfect.
That's perfect. Oh, that's so good. Oh, that's good.
You ever streaked?
Who,
him or me?
No. Bell, get out of the way. Based on the pause, I want to know what Maury has to say about it. Maury tries not to lie, but he knows that his mama listens to the show.
Let's just say, when my Chiefs win the Super Bowl, I have a special way of celebrating. That's all I'll say.
I'm going to tell you a story real quick.
Okay, good. Please.
Because there's nothing going on in the news, right? Did you isolate that?
Yes.
I've told this story a couple times on the radio in the past, and people do not believe me that it happened the way that I'm going to describe it, but I promise you it happened the way that I'm going to describe it. I did a lot of stupid things when I was in college. This was one of them, just one of them. I lived in a house with 5 other people. It was a huge I thought it was a huge farmhouse. I've since went back and visited it. It wasn't that huge at all, but I thought it was. We had a lot of parties out at this farmhouse. There was 5 of us who lived there. I rode a motorcycle in college, and I worked at Waffle House, as I've mentioned. And ours became known as a party house. And that broke up pretty quickly because it became laborious because everybody thought they could party at our place and then leave, and then we're left with the cleanup and all of that kind of stuff. But during one of these parties, I came home from work and I was getting out of my Waffle House garb and I was getting into some other stuff, and so I forget how this happened. I had not been drinking, and that comes to benefit me greatly at the end of this story. But someone bet me that I would not ride my motorcycle naked.
Oh, gosh.
And so I put on my boots and I put on my helmet and I got on my bike and I left. And I thought I was showing off. And then, I pull out of the thing and everybody's in the yard. And I drive down the side street, and then I make the mistake of, we lived on a country road, but it was like a county road, divided road. And I turned down the road, and I'm about to crest a hill. And as I crest the hill and I'm turning around, and I see headlights coming from the other way. Oh. And so I just do my business, and the headlights get bigger and bigger and bigger in my rearview mirror. And then the blue lights come on.
Oh.
It's a sheriff's deputy. I'm like a half a mile from the house. And so I pull over and I take the helmet off and I put it in my lap. And he walks up. Never forget this. He said, "You better pray to God that you're not drinking."
Ooh.
And he was laughing when he said it. And I said, "No, sir. I have not had a drop to drink. I just got over, and it just spills out of me. It was a bad, it was stupid. I mean, God,
I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry. I'm just about half a mile away. And they bet me, and I did my clothes over, please."
Oh.
And he said, "I'll tell you what." He said, "I'm going to walk back to my car, and you put that helmet back on in that order, and I'm going to follow you to your house. And if your house is where you say it is, and you don't weave, you just pull right in, and we're going to call it a night." And I said, "Yes, sir." And the last thing he said to me was, "Don't weave." And so
he just didn't want to cuff you.
My gosh.
Or cuff him and stuff him. Get all of Murphy in the back seat of that. Anyway, so I crank the bike up and I drive back, and it became a fairly famous story amongst our circles because I went back home and pulled into a party barn full of people, and the cops were right behind me when I did. Anyway.
Whoa.
That's my naked
That's
motorcycle.
crazy.
My naked motorcycle story. And that is the end of that story. So I can kind of identify with this guy in the backyard in Franklin. I mean, he's not bothering anybody. He's just doing his thing. He's just showing the world what God gave him. In a moment, San Antonio airport worker, this is kind of a tragic story. It was already a tragic story, but took even a worse turn. And the odds of Major League Baseball expansion in the city of Nashville. We'll do that next at Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
The first license plate reader data is coming to Tennessee after the 3-month pilot program. Well, 3 of the 6-month pilot program. Audio from a mass shooting in Texas released, and President Biden uses something millions of other Americans use to help with sleep apnea. That and more coming up at 3 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you much, Mac Maury. I forgot the punchline of the naked motorcycle story, by the way.
Oh,
I failed to deliver the punchline of the naked motorcycle story because while the cop had pulled me over, he walked up to me and said, "You better pray you hadn't been drinking." I said, "No, sir." And I started babbling at him. And at one point, he said he was laughing. He thought it was funny. He said, "I don't suppose you got any ID anywhere on there with you." It's like,
that's so good.
Yes, sir, but I don't think you want it.
And now I've opened up a can of worms that I wish I could explore, no pun intended, because all of you are telling me about your streaker stories.
Oh, wow. I got to go to the text line.
From, on the text line from, like, for example, so my brother and I once played naked golf. We had 40 acres in Missouri. We built a par 3 course, figured it would be a bright idea to play naked golf. We did. It was a hoot. Good times. Imagine trying to sink a 4-foot putt. Well, that's all you need to say about that. I went streaking at Ole Miss in 1984. What are the laws if you live in the country and streak around? Who knows? Who knows? That is the end of that tale. By the way, Amtrak apparently has derailed in California. That's a breaking news story that we're following for you. And all the rest that is fit to talk about, probably no naked motorcycle stories on The Drive with Brian Wilson on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Until tomorrow, bright and early at 12 noon. We'll see you then, folks. Have a great day.